Welcome everybody to the Chess Lab. So I played round 4 in the chess club tournament, and I wanted to show it to you. So my opponent opened with knight f3, which is kind of my I don't know how to say it, but like that's my nemesis. Here it is. I think that I have a record of like not 100% losses against knight f3, but I think I've always lost, and one time I draw. I think that's my track record against knight f3, and I'm talking in like over the board forever. Of course, online I must have won just randomly, but yeah, knight f3 is the beast. Okay, so I played knight f6, c4, I played c5, and okay, here I'm in my repertoire. I'm building a repertoire against this knight f3 move, which is for me is the most problematic, mainly because of transpositional issues, meaning knight f3 can be anything really, so it really depends what white does, and that's quite complicated for me to wrap my head around it. Knight c3, knight c6. So these will be the 4 knights. It technically is the English for knight because c4 was played. So this can also be reached, I guess, via English move order. c4, c5, knight c3 or knight f3. And I play knight f6 or knight c6. And then they play the other knight. And then I play the other knight and we are here. So this is an important position to study against both knight f3 and c4, which already for me it makes it very weird. Now I'm getting used to it, so it's not that weird anymore, but like the fact that you can study this position equally from c4 and knight f3 makes it just weird, you know. Knight f3 is the personification, let's say, the movification of flexibility, right? And again, I'm starting to get used to it, but still, it's a little bit weird. So anyways, d4, that's the main move. I captured, knight takes, well, queen takes, of course, is not a move, so knight takes. And here I played e6. Now, my studyings on this whole line is work in progress. So the reason exactly why I played e6, I can't really tell you. I'm studying this very superficially, just so that I have, purely technically speaking, the full repertoire, because I have the tournament in a week, not even a week. I have like a tournament with FIDE rating involved and all that, the Italian team championship, and so I want to have the full repertoire done, but just at least to know the moves and the direction, you know. I don't understand e6. Okay, the idea is to play d5, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so here g3. Again, despite my extremely superficial preparation, meaning I just memorized some very few moves in not even all directions, but some, which is, again, it's bad, but that's what I did. I knew that g3 was a move, and I knew that here I have to play queen b6. So here I remembered. And here my opponent playing knight b3, and this is the main move. And here somehow already I was spending quite a bit of time because, again, I just studied it super superficially, just to be very slightly prepared for my upcoming tournament. But this is not a study that I am, how do you say it, that I am satisfied by, obviously. But you know, you gotta do something better than nothing. And so here I managed to find knight d5, a mixture of remembering and trying to wrap my head around those ideas that I had in my brain. And this is indeed the main move. And so, okay, now aside from my lack of preparation, which again I'm working on, so what's the point of this? Well, okay, white develops, black develops, white try to take some center here, since he's the first one to move. I just I just trade a lateral pawn for a central pawn. And then I play this move e6, which again, perhaps try to go d5, and take some squares away from the white pieces. Is not a terrible move. Also, if white decides to go e4, already the square d5 again is a little bit taken care of, more than a little bit. And yeah, there are some lines where they can play g3, bishop g2, you go d5 anyways, you even sacrifice a pawn with the idea of knight b4. And of course, I have to study like these type of positions very well, because there is to solve the problem of this bishop, which again, the fact that you want to play d5 half solve it, because one of these two pawns gets taken care of, right? The d7 pawn, but still, it's something that you can't just freestyle it, which is what I did. But again, the alternative was to, against knight f3, play my usual terrible semi-Slav, after which I am completely stuck and I have no idea how to make this guy alive after white fianchetto his bishop. So, lacking better alternatives, I went with this, and I'm happy I did, because now, once I study this line, I have also an emotional attachment to it, which makes it much easier to remember everything. So, good thing it happened, I guess. So, okay, so what's the idea after e6? Well, after e6, you're not really causing white directly any trouble. So, there is this pawn on c4, which kind of plays against this light square bishop, and so it's typical of the English. Again, I don't even know how you want to call this. Like, is this from the English or from the Reti? Because this is from knight f3, but again, it can come from c4. So this is an English. Maybe, I don't know. Again, does it even matter? Perhaps. But okay, the idea in the English is that you usually play g3, bishop g2, and again, you kind of work with those light squares, and also again, developing this bishop here is definitely possible. I mean, in c4, d4 openings, that's what you do, but usually you want to have it here. It's just the way they play. So g3 is the main move in this position, and that's what my opponent played. And here again, I go queen b6. Now, black's idea here is an argument, as far as I understood, which is not much, is basically that, if white is able to actually get this bishop g2 castle in quickly, we may have some issues, because our bishop is stuck, and if we spend 2 tempi fixing our king, which is still in the center, again, this bishop on c8 may remain a constant problem. And so the argument in this position here, right? The argument of queen b6 is that we are posing a question to white, and the question is, how do you solve the problem of this knight? And if the knight simply goes back, the argument is we want a tempo with queen b6, which is an overall useful move. And if they take, again, I haven't studied this specifically, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but I guess that the idea is you just take back, and then d5 is very well supported, and you can always develop this bishop out very easily. If they take, you have no problems. And basically black in these lines is going for equality, is not claiming with a move like queen b6 that we are, attacking, not even close, but we are claiming we are posing you problems, and you have to waste tempi, do something. And okay, here the main move is knight b3, that's what my opponent played, and here I went with knight to e5. And again, knight to e5 has the same idea. The idea is I'm attacking this pawn, is a little bit awkward to defend it. You can sacrifice it for initiative, sure, but again, then you're down a pawn, and you're fighting for this initiative counter playing idea, and black equalized, and black is fine with it. And yeah, it's a little bit awkward to defend this pawn. There are some lines where, again, white sacrifices it, but again, then it's equal. because white has enough counterplay, but again, black is fine with white fighting for counterplay. That's the argument. And okay, the other way to defend the pawn, the other way to deal with the pawn rather than sacrificing it for initiative is to defend it. And that's what my opponent did with e4. And this is where I mixed up my preparation, or I made up my preparation perhaps, because in this position here, the main move is bishop to b4, it turns out. And well, now I know it. And it's very logical because bishop b4, let's put it on the board, bishop b4 pins the knight and so threatens the pawn. And, it's not super easy to deal with this. Also because if you play bishop to g2, remember this pawn may fall, right? So this bishop has to defend the pawn. And again, the move g3 doesn't play too well with this idea of e4 defending the pawn, because if you're not going to play bishop g2, why did you play g3? So, these weird ideas of playing queen b6, knight e5, they may look like, you're developing the queen early, you're losing a tempo with the knight, but if followed up properly, and bishop b4 would be the correct follow-up, black actually have a very sound position. For example, here one of the main moves is to play c5 and just sacrifice a pawn for initiative, and you're going to develop and all these things. But again, we are talking about white accepting absolute equality because they're saying, okay, I'm down material, but I'm fighting for the initiative. This is completely fine from black's point of view. However, here I mixed it up. I didn't go for bishop b4, but I went with knight f to g4, which attacks this pawn, which is not... I mean, you have to be precise. There's only one move here for white, but it's not difficult to find. And of course, my opponent found it, but I expected it too. And after that move, you don't have much. And I saw all of this, but again, in lack of alternatives, I just went with this. So yeah, the problem is I'm still studying this. And so I went with it because... I wanted to have still, despite a lack of preparation, I'm like, for the little preparation I have, let's see how it goes, right? And this game is not rated, so I was like, it is what it is, just go with it. And yeah, here, this is a mistake, because after queen to e2, which is the right way to defend, of course, this is a threat of checkmate, you have to find a way to defend it. Bishop e3 is out of the question, because I just win a pawn and white's position collapses. And also moving the queen here will lose to this fork. And moving the queen here, I mean, it's technically possible, but knight f3, and you are simply losing the right to castle. Not to mention, if you go here, now I take, because the queen is no longer defending. And after queen here, check king here, I can just fork, because now the king is not defending that pawn anymore. So yeah, basically the only way to defend is by playing queen e2. Also a move like knight to d4, if I'm not mistaken, I can simply take it, because in the end of the variation I have this fork, and I end up being up a piece, because I take both of these two for this, because my knights then are not forkable, the king is too far away, so I will win a piece. So yeah, queen e2 only move, but in chess you only need one move. So yeah. And after queen e2, I was aware of the fact that f4 was a threat, because f4 has the idea that these knights are kind of linked to each other, and if you remove this defender and it goes away, then this one falls. And I was aware of it, obviously, and I tried to make something work that wasn't... simply knight f6, that was an idea to simply move the knight away from the attack, but then white simply goes here, and is fine. This pawn is now defended. And I want to try to avoid this. Of course, I'm completely mistaken. This is the wrong direction to go. There's no way to save against that idea. The best move is h5, so that if f4, I can just move this knight, because this one here is defended now. But after h5, I'm checking with the engine here on the lateral side here. There is h3, and yeah, I mean, if I go back is bad. The best move would be check, and perhaps you sacrifice a piece to have some sort of initiative, but is not even close to be enough. Again, the best thing that black can do is +2, but I didn't go with the absolute best thing. I played a5, which anticipates f4. It's wrong, but I still went with it. And in my mind, I knew it was wrong. My justification for a5 is that at least keeps the game complicated. But my opponent blundered here. So I blundered first with knight f to g4, this idea of going after the pawn, which was incorrect. I should have pinned this knight. So that was my blunder. And in this position here, my opponent doesn't play f4. He told me after the game that he kind of was concerned with certain variations, which I understand. That was my plan with a5 to make things very complicated. And it kind of worked out because my opponent played bishop f4. This is a blunder not because white is losing or anything. It's just equal now. But again, it was winning for white. So it goes from winning for white to draw, and so the engine is like, that's a blunder. And after bishop f4, the problem is that there are no threats. Because if you take here, I take here, and if you take here, of course I take here. And so here I have time to play a4, and now of course f4 is impossible, and a3, well, your knight is under attack, so you're not winning material, for sure. And this is equal. However, let's go back for a second and let's try to navigate what happens if f4. Well, if f4 happens, white is just winning. It's just winning. Now, my idea, so much so the engine is suggesting knight c6, just brutal. My idea wasn't to play a4. My idea was to play knight to d3 check. And again, it's one of those cases where white has just one move, but the move is obvious. Now f2 will become a problem, so you have to take, but this is completely winning for white. Now my idea was that the queen now is deflected from the f2 square, so my idea was to check. And after the king goes to d1, I don't really have good moves with the queen to threaten this fork. And unfortunately, the move knight to e3 check doesn't work because of the bishop. However, here, since I've played a5, I can go a4. And the idea behind a4 is that white cannot play knight to d2. That will lose to knight e3 check, because the knight stops the bishop. And also, this is controlled. So here white will have to give away the queen. And I have the queen. Yes, white has some pieces out, but the king is in the center. I have the queen. The queen cannot be trapped, and this will be -4, basically, almost -3.6, the engine says here. So this was my idea of complication, to play a4. However, I realized that there were ways for white to deal with this. For example, knight d4, this is the move that I saw mainly. I also saw eventually queen to e2, which I'm not sure about. Yeah, apparently this is not that great, because I can simply ignore, win a knight, and if you take there is a fork. But okay, even outside of queen e2, the main move that I saw, which is the best move according to the engine, is knight d4. That's what I saw in my calculation, and my idea was to play bishop c5, which again, all these moves like a4 and bishop c5 are correct. The problem is the position is losing. So, for black, is winning for white. But yeah, here I'm like, at least this is complicated. I stopped here my calculation. I knew that there was no way that white was losing here, and I knew that there must have been a way for white to win. But I was thinking, listen, it's complicated, whatever. And from this moment, you know, all the way back here, that's why I played a5. And my opponent saw kind of these lines too. He didn't really want to play f4. So again, my bluff, but it's not a bluff. It's just both players know that is not that great objectively, but things can always go wrong when you're under attack. And so practically speaking, it kind of poses some issues. Just to go back to that variation there after knight d4 and bishop c5. Here really white can do anything. Bishop h3 is a move that I never saw. The idea is that yes, you can win this knight, but I'm gonna win yours. And this knight blocked this square, so I'm never in time to play bishop e3, because bishop here just fixes everything. Yeah, the king is in the center, and I have 2 attackers, but he has a billion of defenders, and yeah, there are no forks to the rooks. But also knight d to b5, for example, is a move, which says, you wanna go here, go ahead, but there are no mates to follow up. I'm gonna trade pieces. Also, I'm threatening a nasty fork, and you can't allow yourself to lose tempi, and you are already down a piece, because black is already down a piece here. So yeah, there was absolutely nothing, and f4 would have won. But again, to play it, practically, it's perhaps a little bit not easy. So, a5 was a move that was kind of scary, and okay, it practically worked. It saved me. For the good or for the bad, it did work. And my opponent played bishop to f4. Now, obviously, the analysis of this game could just end here, because, that's what I'm doing. I've been doing it now for 3 months, basically, 2.5, and I'm gonna keep going for other months. Just finish your repertoire. You can't enter such positions that are very tender with the knight moving 2 times and the queen out. You have to know what to do. So yeah, the point of this game is you gotta finish studying your repertoire, which is already what I'm doing. So yeah, but okay, of course we're gonna look at the whole game, because there are other interesting moments that, yeah. So okay, queen e2 is said, a5. Let's call it bluff, even though it's not really a bluff, but okay, whatever it is, it kind of worked. Bishop f4, and here I played a4. And what's crazy is that these positions are really complicated, and it turns out that here the best move is c5. Yeah, it's c5, which makes a lot of sense, because now if I take, they can take. And remember that they couldn't play something like h3 to win my knight, because their knight was hanging. However, if I take, then they are winning a tempo, trading their knight for my bishop. And so a move like h3 or f3 probably works. But let's check it. Yeah, here knight takes, queen takes. And here the move f3, which already is not super easy. You will say h3 is better. But there are some complications, so f3 seems better. And okay, the queen defends here, but after, let's say, knight h6, I'm checking at the engine here, bishop e3. But now the knight is safe, and basically the idea is that, okay, here white is not going to win a piece, but my knight is randomly here, can't really rejoin society. This knight is really, really blocked, if you really look at it. And this queen is under attack, and white will be able to castle pretty quickly. So I'm kind of falling behind a little bit in development, but it's not a big deal. For example, queen e7, long castle, the engine is giving castle, and the game is kind of crazy. White has the bishop pair, so both short term and long term white is doing fine, tactically and strategically. But c5 should have been played. I should have played queen d8, and after h3, g5, I'm looking at the engine here, h takes, g takes, g takes, a takes, f takes, b takes, rook takes, rook takes. The position is crazy, but it's too simplified, and so the engine is like, this is equal. However, in this position here, yeah, no, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, knight takes, bishop takes, or queen c7, or even h5, whatever, and it's a draw. But, and this is where it gets crazy, Again, positions very complicated. First of all, this miss with bishop f4, a4, and here bishop takes e5. And it's crazy because after the game my opponent told me, I think that was the only move, and I was like, yeah, because we both thought that this was the only move. But it turns out that this crazy c5 idea is better. But if you exclude c5, then it's pretty tough for white. So yeah, we thought that bishop takes was the only move, but the engine considered it a blunder, because after knight takes, black is just better, minus 1.5. Okay, now the knight is hanging. If you go here, there are problems. Again, c5 is the main move, but now it's a little bit bad because of queen b4 and some complications where the knight keeps being attacked and this pawn will fall and stuff like this. So okay, the knight was moved to c1, and here I simply played bishop to c5. Seems like bishop b4, pinning this knight and perhaps threatening to double those pawns, which looks horrible. It's superior. Also a3 is a little bit superior, but bishop c5 is not terrible. It still keeps an advantage. So yeah, I would say that another mistake that I did is to focus too much on this point, which is now not a problem for white anymore because of tactical reasons. I should have really focused on this. Remember also that the main move, the one I missed originally, is not to play knight g4, but rather bishop b4. So this idea of pinning this knight, not to just make e4 tender, but also to like double up these pawns, it's really the main idea. But okay, again, the fact that I played this game now really fixating into my mind, so now I have these concepts. Okay, I play bishop c5, still keeps kind of an advantage. Now a3, and the reason also why I play bishop c5 is because I missed a tactical detail. Here I was super convinced that my opponent had to play bishop g2, absolutely, to castle, because here my idea was to play knight g4, and if white takes, I take here, and the position collapses. The problem is I also missed the fact that after bishop g2, there was a variation that I calculated where I take, and the queen has to take, and then there is a fork. However, the knight to c1, which of course looks horrible, controls the super important d3 square, and so I don't have this tactic. And I missed that. I missed the idea that d3 was covered by the knight, which is silly now that we are here calm and collected, analyzing it again in a relaxed manner. But when I was at the board, for some reasons, I completely missed it. Also, I want to talk about something very important. After bishop c5, a3, I played castle. d6 is more accurate because there are some variations where I sacrifice this knight and the queen goes take it, or even I sacrifice the knight here, the queen takes it, and then I capture here, and I'm attacking both this pawn and this rook, but my bishop hangs. So d6 would have defended my bishop, and now if bishop g2, I think that this move works. For example, d6, bishop here, I'm not sure. No, that's terrible for some reasons. And the reason is queen b5, yeah, and they trade queens. Okay, so no, it didn't work anyways, but okay, then coincidentally d6 is more accurate than castling anyways. But okay, castle is not terrible castling, it's just not the most precise. And here the problem is I had 3 minutes, because again, trying to justify f4 before here. You know, after queen e2, I'm like, okay, he's gonna play f4 next, so what do I do? And here, for example, for the move a5 on move 9, first of all, I spend here on move 8, knight f2 g4, I spend, what is this? 12 minutes. I spend 12 minutes, and this is a 50-minute game, so 12 minutes on a move is crazy. And after queen e2, I spend another 8 minutes. So I'm basically spending half an hour on 2 moves on a 50-minute game. And even on a4, I spent too much time. I spent like 6 minutes, which again, on a 50 minutes game, this is a lot of time for a move that is obvious. I wouldn't be too critical on myself for knight g4 and a5, because these are like quite critical. But bro, after bishop f4, you have to play a4 faster. Like, this should come immediately. Take, take. Okay, that was fast, thankfully. Knight back. And even here, 3 minutes. But okay, here, no, okay, here is not that terrible, because of course you're considering a3, you're considering bishop c5. But okay, play bishop c5, a3. And here, at bishop c5, here I have 12 minutes. And here, for some reason, I think for 9 minutes. And now I have 3 minutes. Like, and I have 3 minutes. The problem is, now that all the tactical shenanigans are gone, now I play d6, of course, because I want this guy to get out. And also I want to prevent this to come with a roll. That's why d6 is important. It's like, this is just a game of chess. Not only that, I have quite a good position, because despite white is not going to get like obliterated immediately on the f2 pawn or on the queen side, white pieces are worst. This knight doesn't really have a future. This pawn is backward and targeted. This knight is, well, is where it is. And this bishop is not really looking great, because there is this e4 pawn that, remember, was played initially for this idea, but now it simply blocks this bishop. And once they castle, they can't really start to play f4 stuff, because they literally can't because of the rules, but even if they do it, it's very, very dangerous. So I managed to find myself in a better position, which is great, despite kind of messing it up in the opening. But, you know, it was a complicated position, practical chances, whatever. I managed to get here better. The problem is now I have 3 minutes. And 3 minutes turn into 1 real quick, as you will see. And you can't just play on 1 minute. My opponent had, after d6, I had 3 minutes, and my opponent has 26. You can't do that. So castle, and that's one of the reasons that made me realize, because a situation like this happened to me all the time when I was playing over-the-board federated tournaments. And such a situation happened to me all the time. It was either slightly better for me or dead equal, but I had no time. And that's why I think that studying openings, and when I say this, I mean understanding which lines to go and the ideas, it's so important, because it just makes you save so much time. And your opening, if you prepare it well, should end in a position that you can navigate without spending half an hour a move, you know, over the board. Unless the position is completely winning, in that case it's fine. But yeah, that's why I'm so fixated on studying opening. This game simply proves it to me even more, because you'll see how this game end. I mean, I am clearly better, but it doesn't matter, because I have 2 minutes. And my opponent has 26, and the position is fairly complex. So okay, play bishop d7, knight d3, and here this pawn falls. Knight d3 is the best move, by the way, leaving the pawn hanging. And the reason is, if white doesn't play knight d3, what do you do? Of course, there are moves. It's not that white loses or anything if he doesn't play knight d3, but I will just always have a better position. So knight d3 is, practically speaking, the best move, and also the engine likes it. Knight takes c4, knight takes c5, takes a piece, attack the knight, so my reply is forced. Rook a to c1. From the distance, I was kind of afraid, and also something like, for example, after knight d3, of course you see all of these, and it's like, it's not super easy to go into this. You kind of have to just go, because if you have 20 minutes you can calculate, but with 3 you just can't. I had to play hoping that I wasn't missing anything specific. I saw ideas of like e5, but all the time I just played d5, and I'm consolidating the knight while closing the bishop. I have to make sure that there are no sacrifices, but it seems like they're not. It's not easy. It's really not easy. Rook a to c1, b5, rook f to d1, And here better would be rook f to c8, but at this point again, now I have 1 minute and 52. Yeah, I'm down to 1 minute. Here I played queen b6, and here knight takes a4 is the best move, with the idea that after rook takes a4 there is b3 forking. I saw this idea, but again, with 1 minute you can't allow yourself to be fancy. I'm like, if he goes for it, he goes for it, and it's a draw. I still should keep my pawn up, but it's this pawn, so it's gonna get lost, and it's just a draw. I saw it, but okay, my opponent didn't play it when knight a2. So now I'm back with having my advantage, because again, unless my opponent finds something, I'm just up a pawn. I played e5 to make sure this stays shut down forever and to go here. This is a good move. Knight b4, trying to reach this square, so bishop e6. I'm ready to give away that bishop for the knight if he jumps to d5. Rook c3, rook a to c8, bishop f1, g6. Something I'm proud of is that I managed to find this g6, king g7, h5 idea to improve my position with moves that are not too compromising, and I can play them with little time on the clock. So I'm happy of that. Again, I'm playing on 1 minute. I'm playing on increment, which is 20 seconds of increment. f3, and here, yeah, I should have just keep calm, but of course try to keep calm with 1 minute. On move 26, I had, I was playing on increment, because the last move I checked was g6, which is this move here, and I played g6 with 38 seconds. And I was playing these moves with increment, which again is not a sustainable strategy. You will eventually blunder. And I did in the end. Oh, you'll see. Here I played h4. The idea is that if he takes, now he gives me some chances, because after rook h8 is actually not possible to defend this pawn. There is queen e1, which technically defends the pawn, yes, but then I have queen to d8. And this pawn is gonna be won, and then he has a target here, he's down a pawn, my pieces are better, and all of a sudden I'm winning. This is minus 2.4, but this is understandable. So no, I'm also finding some not too stupid ideas. The problem is, again, you have 20 seconds, you cannot do this forever. Here I play queen d8, queen f2, queen f6. Again, I'm actually quite happy that I didn't crumble immediately. Here I also have this threat. It's very easy to stop it, h3. Now queen f4, and here queen takes h4, which is a mistake. Now I'm winning. The problem is, I don't know how much time I have. I'd say sub 30 seconds. And so I just couldn't find the move. Now, in the beginning, I thought that this move was winning, because I'm like, he's gonna move, and I just take here and he's losing, but then I realize his bishop is defending. Because of these reasons, the best move is either knight e3 or knight to d2, because the idea is that you are attacking the bishop. If you play knight e3, you're also attacking this pawn with check. Now, the reason why I didn't play any of these two moves, I think I saw knight d2 and I was trying to make it work, is that I had 30 freaking seconds. It's not that I didn't saw this idea of making this knight attack this bishop, which is the main defender of his king side. I saw it, even with 30 seconds I saw it, but you can't just see something. You have to actually play it, and to actually play it you have to calculate. But with 30 seconds you cannot calculate. The problem in moving the knight is that you have to calculate rook takes c8, and it's not super easy. You have to calculate what happens if you keep one rook alive. You have to calculate what happens if you trade everything. And it's just very difficult. And so I just took the pawn, which is going in the wrong direction. Now we traded a couple of pawns, and I'm up a pawn, so I'm still up a pawn now. That's why the engine still thinks that this is minus 1 point something. But I could have just won. And again, with 30 seconds, you can't do that. So knight takes b2, and here knight d5 would have forced me to take here, rook takes, and then bishop c4, which has some crazy ideas underneath. If my opponent played knight d5, I would have probably lost, I think, but I don't know. But my opponent also started to have like 4 minutes, so he was also low on time now. Because again, you know, despite my 30 seconds, all of this idea of playing g6, king g7, h5, those ideas were not stupid. So, you know, my opponent had to think. He couldn't just rush to play on my time because the position wasn't easy and I wasn't playing stupid moves. And I'm proud of that, of course, but 20 seconds, bro. Here better would have been to play bishop takes c8, but again, I have no idea what the difference is. And of course, if I spend 20 minutes now, I'll figure it out, but I didn't have 20 minutes back then, so, and I'm not that interested, so rook takes c8, yeah. And after rook takes c8, I should have just taken here, and this is equal. But if this is equal, why is the engine criticizing my queen takes f3? Because the engine is giving an inaccuracy here, but the best move is also equal. So yeah, no, this is not an inaccuracy, it's just the engine being weird. Because the best move will be bishop takes c8 and the evaluation is 0-0, and the quote-unquote inaccuracy, queen takes f3, is still 0-0, so the evaluation doesn't change. So, okay, bishop g2, and my idea was check, right? And I won a pawn. So now I'm up 2 pawns, right? The problem is knight d5, and there's gonna be repetition for sure. Here I managed to find the best move, because actually here is quite dangerous. If I'm not careful, I may get checkmated, or I lose the bishop. So I figured, okay, if these 2 pieces are the ones that are attacking, I have to try to play a move to like get rid of one. And that was correct. Bishop e6, the best move. If I play anything else, I lose. Just to make you understand, bishop e6 is the best move, 0-0. Queen takes d5 is the second best move, which loses the game, of course, you just give up the queen. But I play bishop e6, my opponent play queen f6. And okay, here all I have to do is to play king g8 or king h7, and it's a draw. But again, I had 20 seconds, and I started to see ghosts. I saw that if I go here, there is this check. And after I go here, I didn't realize that, you know, this doesn't work because the knight is hanging. And I just started to see ghosts. I wanted to play king g8, but for some reasons, this scared me so much. This didn't scare me because I just go back. And so in a crazy turn of event, having 20, 30 seconds for like 15 moves now, or even more, I played the brilliant king f8, which hangs mate in 1. And that's how the game ended. So yeah, there is a reason, you know guys, why I don't want to play tournaments until my repertoire is completed. The only reason why I'm going to play a tournament this weekend is because I'm playing it with the chess club. And again, on paper at least, I'm one of the strongest players. And so my presence just increases the chances of the team doing better than the event where I don't participate. So I'm gonna participate for the team. But for myself, dude, I wanna finish to study this repertoire like I should, and then I'll come back to play tournaments. And I mean, this game is just one game, but it's kind of very well representative of the reason why I don't wanna come back until I'm really fully ready. And listen, this is a very personal thing. Some people will just wouldn't care much. They will say, okay, I prepare a little bit and then I'll build it up from there. That's fine, that's an approach. But for me personally, I prefer to have everything in my head very well organized and then go back. It's just a personal thing. So yeah, anyways, hopefully you find it somewhat educational despite my amazing brilliant moves, especially this final king f8 there. Look at this, king f8, beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your chess.